Hello, I wanted to share two dreams with you that I had just this morning, early January 14th, 2017, the day before the Paris conference to split Israel. Here's the first dream. My husband and I were driving. He was driving down the road. We were in a vehicle, so we were safe. And I could see colors like you normally would when you're driving, green grass, blue sky. I looked out to my right, out my window, and I saw far off in the distance, above the ground, slowly moving forward, I saw a gray battleship. And when I say gray, I could tell it was a vision. That's why there were no colors, as opposed to being in the car. So in my dream, I knew I was having a vision. My husband said, "Look, there's another one," and he saw a battleship on his side of the car. And that was interesting, and they had guns on the side, and I knew that they were going off to war. That was my perception. Then I saw tanks, and the tanks had cannons and guns and more military equipment. Everything stayed gray and moved slowly forward. I also started to see people, and the battleships were out at a distance. The tanks were closer to us, and by the time the people were walking forward, they were right next to the car. I remember seeing some children, even with toys, carrying with them. Everything stayed gray. My husband saw, and I saw this too, a man was behind us holding a rocket launcher, and my husband thought he would aim for the car, so he suddenly stepped on the gas and went forward. And when he did that, a woman and a boy were in the back seat. I don't know if it was mother or son. I kind of had that feeling. But everything stayed gray, and she put her arm on the seat in front of her, which is where I was sitting, and she was very distraught over what was happening, and I tried to comfort her. So I was talking to her, and I remember thinking, I don't even know if she can hear me because she's a vision. So I went to pat her arm, and my hand went right through her. So I, again, didn't know if she could hear me, and such as in real life, when I don't know what to say, and there's some kind of spiritual influence, I start speaking in tongues. So I did that in the car, and this woman and her son disappeared, and I knew that this was a vision from God. That's all I recall from that particular dream. But my interpretation as I woke up was that, okay, things are moving forward to go to war. And I'll explain that a little bit more here in a minute. The second dream was my family, my husband, myself, and my daughter were in a town, and there was some chaotic activity. People were kind of distraught, running around. Didn't know why. I didn't see any military in the town, just that people were running around. Some were looting. So we found a house that we felt somewhat safe in, and I wanted to start locking all the doors and windows. My husband had to leave for some reason, so I tried to lock the doors and windows, and they wouldn't stay locked unless I stood there and held it down. And people were trying to get in, and I was afraid to leave the door, and I remember thinking, this is why we are to call out to God to be our safety, our shepherd, because he's the only one that can take care of us. So my daughter she was helping me, but then she got on the phone to call someone, and so I was becoming concerned that people would get in the house. So I went out the front door real quickly to find some wood, because there were things from home scattered all over the place. So I tried to find something to tack up against the door frame once I was back in the house, or to nail against the frame so people couldn't get in. I found a couple pieces of wood. I brought them in the house, and I also found a rolling pin. And the rolling pin was my weapon of choice. I don't have guns. It's not that I don't believe that they're going to be useful for some purpose. And some people, if the God leads you to buy those, that's your business. I personally don't have any, and I feel like in this house we are not to have any. So in the dream there wasn't any, but there was a rolling pin, and that was good for me. So I got back in the house, and I found that because I left the doors, all the other doors, people were starting to get in. Now, it wasn't that I was afraid of the people as I was if they would hurt me. So I told my daughter, we need to be with more people in a home. That would be more security. So we left that house and went into another home where there were more people. They were kind of standing around, and one of them said, there was a man that looked up and said, "Look, there's some aliens." Okay, well, this was like in a skylight in his home. So I walked over to it, and he said, "See, there's the silver disc." And I could barely see an outline of a silver disc hovering over the house. And in my dream, I thought to myself, oh, great, now I have to deal with aliens. And that's the end of that dream. So I'll give you a little bit of my interpretation about the war. I believe in the United States that first we will see geological events and upheaval and earthquakes and things like that before we actually see war on our ground. I know some people think we're going to be hit with a nuclear weapon right away. I don't see that happening. The people that I believe are hearing from the Lord, that's not what I personally have come to understand them seeing, but rather we will have these geological events that will invite these people like Russia and China to send ships. In fact, I think even Chuck Youngbrandt saw that first in his book that I just read from yesterday under the Chicago earthquake video. But he saw these ships come to, quote, help us, but they didn't. They ended up invading the United States. Now, having said that, because the vision was in gray and I knew people were going off to war, I believe we will see war. We will see it. We're already seeing it. They've sent troops to Poland, and there's troops in the Middle East, and my goodness, everything is building up over there because of what's going on. So I certainly believe war is going to break out. It kind of has in different areas, and that's going to happen. We're going to see that, but we won't be in it physically, at least where I live. I don't believe that's going to happen yet. I believe our punishment starts with geological events. So that's why everything was in gray. It was moving away from me. It didn't affect me. Even the woman in my car, I couldn't feel her. I didn't feel her fear. I was just seeing her. So that's my interpretation of that. Now, as for the second one, because of all the calamities that are going to hit, there will be rioting and chaos and looting and people trying to find security within towns. And so when these things start to happen with the geological problems here, that's what we'll see, and we'll want to find comfort with other people that aren't hurting us, supposedly church members, family members, friends, neighbors that you can trust. So they will be there. And what was interesting was when the aliens showed up, because I was always under the impression that the aliens wouldn't show up till after we were transformed. So God reminded me of a dream that I had a while back that I posted in my website, and that was I had specifically asked him one day if he would show me what I would see with my natural eyes before the transformation. And I had a dream about aliens in the sky, and we could also hear them. And I believe that's what happened in this dream last night as well. I could see them. We could see UFOs. We could hear them, but they were not interacting with us just yet. It's my personal opinion that we will be transformed first before we have to interact with them. I could be wrong about that. I'm also remembering, again, other things from people that I trust are hearing from God. It's hard sometimes to interpret dreams and visions unless you get that exactly from the Lord. So what you might see, someone else could see something totally different, and you might see that with these dreams. Please feel free to share your comments. But I believe that some chaos will start first, like the sky colors we've learned about, the auroras, things happening first in the sky, and we will know it's coming, but we won't be transformed until we're actually experiencing some geological problems, volcanoes, ring of fire going off, things that are going to be very obvious. And then we'll be transformed to help others, and then we'll be interacting with the fallen angels, which are the aliens. So I hope that this has helped you in some way. Again, I don't feel like, at least in the United States, we will see war, or we will be in a war, but we'll see it, and etc. I don't want to repeat myself, so hopefully it helps.